Currently Mem Testament base, 49b, about 10 lines in. The Gemara, 10, 12 The Gemara starts, Amarav. Rav said, Chelev, Tar, Sosin. So we're discussing, before we're discussing the Chalav and the fats that are prohibited and the fats that are permitted. And now we're going to discuss which of these fats, let's say there's a whole opposite these fats in whatever organ they're covering. Does this fat seal it up like we saw earlier with the flesh around the lung? That it seals it up. Some of the fats do seal up the holes in the organs. So Amarav Chelev Tar, the tar fat, the fat that's permitted to eat, sosin, that does seal up the holes in the organs. Tamei, if it's prohibited fat. Eno sosin, that's not going to seal it up. Rav Sheshes feels that either way, both the kosher fats and the not kosher fats will seal up the holes in the environment in the organs. But if they're chelev chaya, mai. So if they're asked regarding a wild, we basically the isra chelev, this of the fats only applies to behemoths, to domesticated animal, but not to wild animals. So the question is, all the fat in the wild animals is prohibited. So do we say that my dafka amar chelev tar? So same. We say that all permitted fat is sealed up the hole. And the fats of the wild animals are also considered tar, so therefore they would be sosin, they would seal up the holes. Or maybe it's because the nature of the fats that are permitted, it's a material that seals it up, that covers it. So that's why it is considered, it saves it, and that's not, it has nothing to do with the fact that it's prohibited, but it has to do with the fact that it's a texture that'll seal it up the hole, and this doesn't make a difference whether it's a domesticated animal or wild animal. It's those same fats will seal it up. That's the question. Amar Abai Maiti Bayale. So Abai asked him, "What's your question?" So I understand that it's permitted to eat the fats of the wild animals. But it still doesn't stick. It doesn't cover it. It's not going to seal the hole. Even so, whatever is prohibited on a domesticated animal, on the wild animal, even though it's permitted, it won't seal up the holes of the organs that it's on its covering. There was a certain hole that sealed up, that was sealed up by not kosher fat, by the prohibited fat. That's like the Rava that came in front of Rava. Amar Rava l'may neichush. So what are we worried about? Number one, first of all, Rav Sheshes, there was a machlokas, there was an argument earlier as to whether it's so same or not, and as to whether prohibited fats seals it up or not. And Rav Sheshes, there was an opinion that says that it does seal it up. The Torah cares about the money of Yisrael, and here we're going to say it's not kosher. The whole animal is going to go into the garbage. So with these two calculations, he wanted to say that it's permitted. Amar le Rapapa l'Rava. Rapapa said, "Rava, Ravi sur deraisa." There's a Rav, and there's the opinion of Rav that says prohibited visur the rice, and there's a prohibition from the Torah that prohibits the fats, the animal, when the fats seals it up. And you want to say that the Torah cares about the money of Israel, so therefore we're going to be lenient in this case. How can you say such a thing? And therefore he disagreed with him. Minyomin kanduka igli, like, so Minyomin is a certain person, kanduka, for that he used to sell jugs. Igli like bebastaka de duvsha. So someone he got a jug of honey. So the jug of honey was open. It was an open jug, and there's a problem. There's a concept of mayim gluyim, that if water is left open, one's not allowed to drink it because we're worried that certain animals, may a snake or something like that, might have put in some sort of venom into the liquid, and it's going to be dangerous. So therefore, over here by the honey, he says, when it's an open honey, it should not be a problem. Why? There are only three liquids that are a problem, that we're worried about this issue. The wine, milk, and the water. And this is none of them. But all the drinks are going to be permitted, and this is included in all of the liquids. Additionally, the Torah cares about Yisrael, the money of Kollel Yisrael, the Jews, and therefore we don't want to throw it out for no reason. Amar le Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak le Rava, Rav Shimon of Zakanas Nefashos, v'at Amar Zedar Chasal Manish Yisrael. He said we have a Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon is the opinion of Rav Shimon that said that it's prohibited. The uncovered water in such a case is going to be prohibited. Uncovered honey will be prohibited because of such a concern. And you're going to say, and we have it's number one, his opinion. Number two, it's an issue of sakanas nefashos, of danger. You're going to say here that the Torah cures about the money Yisrael, so you shouldn't throw it out. We have good reason to be stringent and not allow you to use it. Rav Shimon Mai. So what's this opinion of Rav Shimon that would not allow it? There are 5 liquids that don't have this prohibition on drinking uncovered liquids. Sir v'chometz, shemen, udvash, umorius. That's sir is brine, v'chometz is vinegar, shemen is oil, udvash is honey, umorius is some sort of like a fish brine of sorts, I think. Rav Shimon Omer, af heina yesh ba mishum giloy. Rav Shimon says they also have the prohibition. They also have the prohibition of drinking uncovered liquids. It applies to them as well. I actually once saw, he said, I saw a snake that drank that drank brine and sidan. Amrlo, shot you have it. No, he said that one it was a shota. It was a fool. It wasn't a normal snake. Most snakes don't drink from it. The one you saw was abnormal. You can't bring a raya from the abnormal snakes. So he said, at least agree with brine. In other words, if you're not going to agree with me by the other 4 things of vinegar, oil, honey, and morias, at least agree to me by brine. When these Rabbanim had Giloy, that initial something uncovered, they would throw it into the brine because that burns it up. That burns up the problem of the Giloy. So you see clearly they felt brine was not an issue. So they responded to that's what he said to Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon said back, Rav Shimon Elazar say, at least agree to me by honey that Rav Shimon Elazar feels like me. And so Rav Shimon Elazar prohibited it by honey. So he said you should at least agree to me in that case. Okay, and that's how we end that. Amar of Nachman Chelavasi Kakova ain't so same. Honey, fat that fat that looks like a kova, like a hat of sort, is not so same. Heicha Amrila. So say Heicha, where is this fat? Amrila chida de karkashta. Some people say this is the chaylev by the chalcholas, by the rectum, and over there it's not so same because it's a bunch of it's rough. It's a bunch of bumps. It's not a solid thing to seal something up. And there are those that say that it's the shuman. It's actually not chaylev. It's not prohibitive fats, but it's just a shuman around the heart. It's like a pocket. It's more like a pocket. It's not like an actual cover that is attached to it. And if there's a hole in the heart, that will not protect the heart. So we heard from Rav Nachman two things about the fats around the keva, around the 4th stomach. The Ibn Mason. Chimtza or bar chimtza. We have something called chimtza and something called bar chimtza. And chad sasim and chad lo sasim. One of them seals it up, and one of them does not seal it up. We don't know which one is which. Rav Huna bar Chana, Rav Huna Brady, Rav Nachman Amar Rav. Chimtza sasim, bar chimtza sasim. The one that's called bar chimtza, basically, literally the son of chimtza, seals it up. Chimtza, but chimtza itself does not sasim, does not seal up the holes. Where that area is covering, it's not going to seal up holes under it. The simon is the koach of the ben, the strength of the son is stronger than the strength of the father, because we said bar chimtza as strong enough. The son of chimtza is strong enough to seal up the holes, while chimtza cannot. So hey chimtza, hey bar chimtza. Which part of the fats in the keva is considered chimtza, and which part is considered bar chimtza? Tashima damar of Nachman who meichel achli v'lodidan mistam nami lo sasin. So Rav Nachman's talking about a certain part of the fat on the keva, and he says in Eretz Yisrael, over there, basically in Israel, they eat it. They eat this chaylev, this fat. Lidan mistam namila sasim, and he asks, they're eating it, and for us, we're very makbid, but we're not even going to use it to seal it up. At least we should use it to seal it up. It's the question he's saying. If they're eating it in Eretz Yisrael, if it's that permitted, at least we should use it to seal the holes. So we see from there that this machlokes is what Rav Nachman calls bar chimtza, because we'll see in the next line that akash dekule amala pligi, because on the akash, there's two parts of the keva. It's shaped like a bow. There's the outer side, the round side, and the chayil of the fat on that. Kula amala pligi dasar. Everyone agrees over there that it's prohibited. Keep pligi da yasra. When do they argue whether it's prohibited or permitted? On the chayil of a yasra, basically on the basically, if you look at it like a bow and arrow. So the round part is the part that's prohibited. The inner part, the string part where that would look like the string, that would be machlokes. So according to Rav Nachman is saying that they're gonna the Eretz Yisrael they eat. There's a certain part the Eretz Yisrael they eat it, and in Bavel they're usher. They hold it usher. So what's that part? That's obviously the part the chayil of the yasra, because the chayil of the kashta we said that everyone holds it's prohibited. And we see from there that the chayil of yasra must be called bar chimsa, because that's the one we said that seals it up. Ikadam, there are those that say, and Rashi points out that the Rav Nachman has to be like the first the way we just learned, not like the way we're going to introduce now. But there are those that say yasra kula amla pligi deshari. The chayil of the yasra, no one argues that it's permitted. Everyone agrees that it's permitted. That's the chayil on the inside, on the string side of the bow. Ki pligi da kashta, when they're arguing on the outside, on the round part, that's a machlokas. Ki yad amar of Avi amar of Ravami, mekamsim. Like Ravami said that you have to peel off a certain part of the chaylev. You have to peel off from the anama away from the chaylev. You have to take off and the whole year round, because it's all chaylev, because that area is chaylev. V'chein amar huna. In other words, you peel off that part and you can eat the rest. Amar of Avya, havakaim nakameder of Ami, come to v'havulei v'achal. They peeled off the part that they felt was prohibited, and the rest they ate. Shmaya de Rabbi Chanina, the shamish of Rabbi Chanina, havakam kamei de Rabbi Chanina. Amar lei kamotz havli. He said, gather and give to me the eichel so that I'll eat it. Chazia da havakam machasim. He saw he was hesitant about it. Amar lei bavlo ad gom shali. He said, you're bavla. In Bavel, they're more makbid, they're much more machmer, so therefore you should throw it away. Don't eat it. Tanya, Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer, B'nei Meyayim shenikvu leichat sosman. If you have the stomachs that got punctured and there's a liquid that sealed it up, something came from the stomach and sealed it up. So, in such a case, kshera, it's going to be kshera because it's sealed up. My leicha, what leicha is this? Amar of Kahana, shirka de meyaya. It's something that's stuck inside of the stomach on the inside, and that'll seal it up. And that goes out a little, and that seals it up. The that gets pushed outside, and that'll seal it up. Gemiri Chavraya de Rabbi Abba me Rabbi Abba. So the colleagues of Rabbi Abba learned from Rabbi Abba Mani, and who's this friend? Who's this colleague? Rav Zera of Amri LaChavraya de Rav Zera, and there are those say that the colleague of Rav Zera learned that from Rav Zera, Mani Rabbi Abba, and it was Rabbi Abba that learned it from Rav Zera. To follow what we're going to introduce now. Breder Achia Bar Abba. Achiyamar. Achiyamar Rabbi Yochanan. This is where Rabbi Yochanan said, Allah Rav Shimon a little bit treifa. But Allah Rav Shimon Bavel. He had a statement saying that the Allah is like Rav Shimon a little bit treifa, and like Rav Shimon by novel by morning. Allah Rav Shimon a little bit treifa damar, and that's what we just said now. That if there's a puncture of the name and this liquid goes out and seals it up, it's going to be kosher. Rav Shimon Ba'avel, but Rav Shimon, we say that halacha is like Rav Shimon Ba'avel, so what are we talking about over there? All the first 3 days of the mourning period. Let's say it was a certain relative that wasn't by the house of mourning. He's somewhere else and he's coming later. Bami Makam Karv, if he came from somewhere close by, So they have to count 7 days. So if he comes from somewhere nearby, Mona Imam, he's going to count with them. Rachok Mona La'atzmo. But if it's going to be somewhere far, he's going to count his own count. He's going to start his own count, and he's going to count 7 days from when he comes. Mikan ve'elach afilu b'malkum karav. But after 3 days, even if he comes from somewhere close, Mona La'atzmo, he starts again from day one, and he has to go another 7 days. He can't just end with everybody else. Rav Shimon Amar afilu b'yom hashvi b'malkum karav moni imam. Rav Shimon says no. Even if he comes on the 7th day if he comes from a close by place, he can count with them. And he ends basically on that day. Amar Mandu, so someone said that Iski, if I want to have the schus ve'esak v'agmar l'shmait me'pume demar, I want to hear this teaching from the one that taught it. He saw like Ashkel Rabba, and he went there to Israel. When he went there to Israel, he found the Rabba Breder Chia Barabba that said this memra that we saw earlier, that we just saw with that the halach is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel and Treifa, and like Rav Shimon by Navel. Amalei Amar Mar halach Rav Shimon ben Gamliel Treifa. He said, did you say that the halach is like Rav Shimon ben Gamliel by Treifa, like we just saw? Amalei Ini Amalei. No, sorry. Amalei Ha'ein halacha Amri. I said it's not like Rav Shimon, but he asked Rav Shimon ba'avul mai. And what about, is the halacha like Rav Shimon by Navel? What do we say over there? Amalei plukten. So that's going to be machlokas. Ditmar Rav Chizda Amar halacha v'chein Amar Rav Yochanan halacha. So Rav Chizda and Rav Yochanan both said it's the halacha. Rav Nachman Amar ein halacha. Rav Nachman said that the halacha is not like that. So the Gemara ends off. The ein halacha k'Rav Shimon Treifa. The halacha is not like Rav Shimon by Treifa. We don't say that liquid that will seal it up. Halacha Rav Shimon ba'avul, but the halacha is like Rav Shimon by morning, that someone that comes from nearby can count with them, even if he comes on the 7th day. The Amr of Shmuel halacha k'Rav Mekel ba'avul, because by morning we go with the more lenient opinion as a rule. Amr of Shimi Barchia makifin b'vnei me'ayim. So we can compare treifas and b'nei me'ayim. Let's say you have a psul in the b'nei me'ayim, and you're not sure if it happened before shechita or after shechita, before it's gets slaughtered or afterwards. So you can take another animal, another part of the b'nei me'ayim, and you can puncture it the same way, and then you can see if it's the same way, then you can assume it happened after shechita. Makif b'nei me'ayim, he said he could do that. Nanu b'nei me'ayim, that's look made Rava akfinu v'lo idmu. So he compared, he checked it, he made a similar hole or whatever it was to the other hole, and they didn't compare, they didn't look similar, so that it would seemingly imply that this happened, the first one happened before it was slaughtered, and it will be a problem. Amos Asar Misharsha Bray, and the Misharsha came by and he Mishamishbu, and he felt that he massaged it, the idmu, and then it started looking like it. Amrlei Minal, where do you learn this from? How do you know that you can do this? Amrlei Kama Yad Mishamshu Bahani. Look how many hands, you know how many hands touched the other one? Many people touched it and basically got massaged. So we only compare it when it's the same, when it's the same things happen to it. So many people touched it before it come before you. He said, my son is as smart as in Treifus as Rabbi Yochanan, that he realized that he's allowed to do this. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lazar, the Amri Tarvayu Makifin B'Reya. So we can compare. Let's say there's a similar idea that this is a puncture in the reya, and we want to discern whether it's before the slaughter or afterwards. We can make another hole and check if it looks similar, and then it would seem to imply that it happened after shechita, and it would be okay. Makif reya, we could do this by the reya. Amar Rav Lomar Nelabos Aruga. You can only do it in that side of the lung. Basically, it's two sides, the right side and left side. You can only do it in that row of the lung. Aruga, but from one side of the lung to the other. Lo, you cannot do that. Even in one aruga, midaka ladaka, migasa lagasa. You can only do it from the small lobes to small lobes. Below migasa ladaka, below midaka lagasa, but not from a large one to a small one, or from a small one to a large one. Here we have the lung. Basically, there's two sides, this side and that side. You can only so what we're saying is that you can only compare from one side to another. But even on one side, you can only compare the small lobes, let's say from here to there, and to each other, or from on this one on of itself. But if you have something on the big one, you can only compare it to different areas on its own. You cannot compare it either to this one or to any of the other small lobes. So too by a kana by the trachea, you can compare. He said you can also compare holes from one to another. We said you can only compare in that chulya. In other words, in the kana, the trachea is made up of a bunch of bumps, a bunch of rings, and you can only compare it in that ring. But you can't compare it from one ring to another. No, you can actually compare it from one ring to another. When we bar chulila bar chila, we're calling is the other part of the kana. Basically, on one part it's thicker. The area around the kana is thicker on one side, and the bottom it's very thin. So you can compare it from the thick part to the thick part, and from the thin part to the thin part. You cannot compare it from the thick part of the kana to the thin part of the kana. And not mibar chulya, and not the opposite as well. Amr Ziri said chacholas shenikva. If the chacholas, the rectum has a puncture in it, since at that point the legs, the thighs hold it up and it seals it up, and it's not going to be an issue with kama. And how much of it can be missing and it's okay. Amr of Yochanan beruba, the area that's attached, that's inside the leg bone, the thigh bone, even if majority is missing, it's okay. Shalom makam adavik, where it's not attached mashu, even any amount, a whole end of any amount will make it kosher, make it treif, make it not kosher because there's nothing to seal it up. Amru Rabbanan kamei Rava, mishmei Rav Nachman. The Rabbanan stood in front of Rava in the name of Rav Nachman. Amar lil Amar, Lava mina lachu. Didn't I tell you? We quoted this. We quoted this in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Lo tislu bei bukis friki. Don't accuse him of all your empty containers. Basically, don't hang your empty containers on him. Don't accuse him of saying wrong things. No, he said the part that's in the thigh bone that's attached, even if all of it's missing, it's kosher. Provided that there's an amount that you can grab onto, an amount by the end of the thigh bone that you can grab onto it, and the inside of the that's the amount of the of a finger, and that even applies in a shore. In a large shore, that amount of fingers is big enough. Akeres apnimis. Said in the Mishnah. We said in the Mishnah one of the treifas was something in the keres apnimis. A problem in the keres apnimis. Amar Vida, Amar Rav Nasan Bar Shila Rish Tabchai Ditzbar of Nei Rabbi Mishum Rav Nasan Eizo keres apnimis. So what is the keres apnimis? Sanya Divi. So they said it was the Sanya Divi. That's the cecum. Basically, it's the part of the intestines. V'chein Amar Rav Yoshua Ben Karcha Sanya Divi. He also said that's what it was. Rav Shmuel Amar Istamocha de Karsa. It's the istamoka de Karsa. It's part of the stomach. And the Rashi says he doesn't know which part it is. Rav Asi Amar Rav Yochanan Makam Saryesh Bekeres. There's a narrow. He says no. There's a narrow place in the big view of the stomach, in the first of the stomachs. Is a narrow area, and that's what's called the keres apnimi. I don't know where it is. Amr Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Nafal Karsa Bevira. He said then that doesn't help us. If you don't know where it is, then that doesn't help us to identify where would be a problem. Amar Vacha Baravava, Amar Vasi, Mina Meitzar Lamata, from the narrow area and below, basically towards in the chest cavity, is keres apnimis. Rav Yaakov Bar Nachmani Amar Shmuel Makam She'ein Bo Milas. No, it's talking about the part under the animal, facing the bottom of the animal, the place that there's not so much wool. Rabbi Yavina Amar Geniva Mishmei Rav Tefach Beveshet Samuchal keres. So no, we're not actually talking about the stomach. We're talking about the veshet. But it's the last tefach on the veshet that's touching the stomach. That's the keres apnimis. Amr Marav Mishmei Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. So they quoted in Marav. They quoted Rav Yossi Bar Chanina. Kol keres kulo, the whole keres, the whole stomach. Zoe keres apnimis is considered the keres apnimis. Eizo keres chitzon. So what is, we said the outside keres has other rules. Basar chofes rava keres. That's the flesh that covers the majority of the keres. Rabba Baravun Amr Mafrata. It's the mafrata. What is mafrata? My mafrata. Amar Rav Avira. It's the place. It's the part of the stomach that when the butchers open up the animal when it's hanging upside down, that's the part they hit first. Ben Ardo Avdi Karabba. So in Ardo, they did it like they paskin like Rabba Bar Huna. They ruled that it was like Rabba Bar Huna that said that it's that's the mafrata, like we just mentioned. So what do we mean? We had a whole bunch of different opinions about it. So what we're just gonna ignore those opinions? They're all talking about a similar area. They're all talking about towards the bottom of the stomach. So what about what Rasi said in the name of Yochanan, that there's a narrow place in the stomach? I'm like for a piercer of Achabarava with the Rav Chanina with the Rav Avina with the name Marava. Sorry, for a piercer of Achabarava. Rav Achabarava already explained that it's towards the bottom part of towards the narrow part, which is exactly where the butchers open it up. But what about Ravina the Bnei Marava? Ravina that said that it's the talking about the veshet, and the Bnei Marava that said the whole keres the whole stomach is considered the stomach, the inside stomach. So the veshet, the esophagus clearly cannot be. There's not the place where you open it up, where the butchers open it up. That's not part of the stomach at all. So how can their opinions match with the opinion that we go through Rabba Barafuna that says that it's the part where the butchers open up and that's what they see first? Amarlei Hani Vade says that's definitely not in agreement with Rabba Barafuna, but we go like Rabba Barafuna. Rav Yudam or Bigdola. So we're talking about a and the keres afnimis. Then if there's an issue, if it punctures, the Mishnah said that if the inside stomach was punctured, there's the Mishnah, or most of the outside of it, the outside stomach got ripped. Rav Yehuda said the large one is a tefach. If it's a large animal, the size for a rip in it, it'll be a tefach, one full tefach, and breath. But if it's a small animal, even if it's less than a tefach, as long as it's rove of that area, then it'll be a problem. So Yehuda Amr Hagadola, that it's a Gadola is a tefach, and a small one it's rove. It's the majority. Amr Abinam Bar Yefes Amr Blazer Lo Gadola Gadola Mamish Lo Katana Katana Mamish. It doesn't mean an actual large one or an actual small one. But how do you measure the size of the animals? Anything that has a hand's breadth of the animal that tore, and it's not yet rove, and it's not yet the majority of that area. That's over there. We're talking about that's considered a gedola, that a hand's breadth rip in it, a tear in it will disqualify it. Ruba v'lo v'tefach, if it's the majority of the animal of that part of the animal v'lo v'tefach, and it's not a hand's breadth yet. Zoi sheshaninu. That's what we taught, that a biktana beruba. Then in a small one, it's rove. In a small animal, we go with whether it has a tear through the majority, even if it's not a tefach. And that's how we measure large animals and small animals. Whatever rip is bigger by them, that'll disqualify. Ruba v'lo v'tefach. If it's the majority and it's not a tefach, pshita. That's obvious. Let's have a tefach mashu. No, maybe you think that it will be a tefach if it had to drop more. So you might think, it only can disqualify if it goes up until a tefach, if it completes the tefach. And then if not, lo av terefa, it's not going to be disqualified. Kamash malan. Amr Gniva Amr Vasi. So Gniva quoted Vasi. Nikter Akasela. So they were talking about like a tear in it. There's a line, but let's say an area it was like a circle shape was cut out of it. Something was cut out of it. If it's the size of a sela, kesela, that's a coin. Shreifa. Shemti matech, because if it will be stretched out, tamarol tefach, it'll end up being a tefach, and the tefach is the problem. Amar of Chia Baraba. Lididim farshli minei de Gniva amar v'denarda. So Gniva explained to me by the bridge of Narda, kesela kshera. If it's the size of a sela, it's kosher. Yes, make a sela treifa, but if it's more than a sela, then it's gonna be treifa. Come yes, make a sela. Amar of Yosef, come the island plus kashyasa. So what is the size of a sella? How do we evaluate a sella? So if you take 3 kashyasa bitsipa, three date seeds with a little bit of food around them, they have like a little bit left over. It's not completely clean. If you take those 3 next to each other and you push them and you push them next to each other, you push them together, and you fit those in. So that's the size of a sella. Below tzipa, but if you don't have any, if they're completely clean seeds and you don't have any food around them, you put them in with a little spacing between them, and you put those in. That's the size of a sella that's going to disqualify when it's like a circle shaped or a shape of cut out and it's not just ripped. So now we're going to discuss the second and third stomachs. If you find a needle in the wall of the besakosis, this is one of the stomachs in the what? Reticulum. The reticulum, it's called. If you find a needle in the reticulum, if it only punctures one side, it's going to be kosher. If it punctures all the way out to the outside, it's going to be treif. It's going to be not kosher. But if you find a blood spot there, you know that it happened before the shchita, even if it didn't go all the way through. And just you assume that it's sealed up afterwards. And if you didn't find a blood spot, you know that it happened after the slaughter. But if there developed a scab on top of it, you know that it happened 3 days before the shchita. And if there's no scab on top of it, basically if someone bought a cow or an animal from someone else and they found this a scab on top of a needle in the lung, in the stomach we're talking about, in the reticulum, so that's going to be treif. The question is, whose responsibility is it? So if the dealer sold him, the one that's selling the animal sold him a faulty animal, it's his fault. We can only tell if it's his fault if we know that it happened when it's still sold to him. So when he sold it to him within 3 days before, when he sold them before 3 days and it was by the butcher for 3 days already, and there's a scab in it, you know that it happened before 3 days. So as long as he bought it within those 3 days, then he can get his money back from the dealer because he sold him a faulty object. But if there's no scab in it, we don't know when it happened. It could have happened by the butcher himself, and then he cannot bring it back to the seller to claim it from him. So there we'd say, we have a rule, a general rule, that if someone wants to take something away from someone else, he needs a raya, he needs a proof to take something away from someone. And here he has no proof because it could be that it happened by him. So the Gemara asks, how is this different from any other time we have something that punctures? Even though there's no blood in other places, we say it's not good. So in other places, there's nothing for it to get stuck on. The blood it'll just get washed away. Over here, there's a needle. If it happened before shchita, Mr. Chavasarch, it definitely would have gotten stuck to the needle, and therefore, if there's no blood spot, it's going to be okay. So Rav Safra told Abai that I saw a certain rabbi that came from Marava, from the west. And said, "My name is Rabbi Avira." This question came in front of Rabbi. Regarding a needle that was found in the reticulum, and it was only punctured one side of a tarfa, and he said it's a treif. So he sent to this. So Rav Safra wanted to hear from this Rabbi Avira. He sent him v'lo he didn't come to him. He went to go to hear from him, and Avakaya Igra, and he's standing on the rooftop. Amr Nechis Mar, and he said, "Go to come down. And come to me." Lo Nechis, he didn't come down. So he went up to him. I want to hear the story. Tell me exactly how the story happened. Amrlei maftir k'nasiya sana leila mirabi rabba. Asai, I'm the one that brings in and out the Talmidim to go from the base of Medrash, and by Rabbi Vava Ravuna Tzipora Rav Yossi Midan. These two rabbis were sitting Yoshvin Lefanav, were sitting in front of him. Ubas Lefnei Rabbi, and a question came in front of him regarding Machat Shenimtzis Ba'ovi Beis HaKosos, regarding a needle that was found inside the reticulum. It was only punctured one layer. it didn't go all the way through the skin of the reticulum, the membrane surrounding the reticulum. The Rabbi flipped it over to check the inside. And he found a blood stain. Tarfan. He said it's treif. It's not kosher. Why? Because if there's no bruise there, then why would there be a blood spot? So from the fact there's a blood spot, that shows that there was a issue there. I was tareach. He's like, I worked so hard lahu gavra to get him to come to him to hear this memra masnizani, but there's no chiddush in this. There's nothing new. I know this already. It's a mishnah. Hems is the base of kosher. Our mishnah that we just discussed earlier, that it's regarding a hemsis and a base of kosher. These two stomachs, that if they have puncture outside, it's only a problem if it goes all the way through, and only if and even if it doesn't, it's only a problem if there's a blood spot. He said that. So I didn't need him for that. I knew that already. So the next thing we talk about in the Mishnah was regarding a drusef. An animal got crushed in a certain way. Nafula, if it fell, that we didn't get not drus. Nafula, if it fell, and we're worried that its limbs may have gotten crushed. If he left an animal on an elevated area and he found it on a lower area, we're not worried maybe that its limbs get crushed. Yeah. We're not worried about it. It could be it climbed down some way. We're not worried that it fell. Who God did the Havila Ravina? There's a certain goat that Ravina had. The Chaza Chushla Be'ipuma. He saw these peeled barley. He saw it Be'ipuma through a skylight or an open area. He saw it through the roof, through the skylight. Dagar, and he jumped. Nafal Me'igular. He jumped from and he fell from the roof to the ground. As you look at the Rashi, they came to Rashi. They asked, do we have to worry that maybe its limbs got hurt because it jumped from such an elevation? So we quoted a Ravuna, we just quoted a Ravuna, that if you put something on it, left something on elevation, you came and found it lower down, we're not worried that maybe its limbs got crushed. Because it has something. So the question is, why did Rav say that? Is it because he had something to lean himself against, to climb against? He has something to balance himself against to not get hurt, but this one didn't have anything. He just jumped. Or maybe it's because they evaluated themselves that he can jump, and he would only jump if he knows that he can make it. By Nami, in this one also, he realized that he can make it, and he did, and he jumped, and therefore it would be okay. So we said, what's the reason? Why is that? The reason is because when it jumps, when it goes from an high elevation, when we find it in a lower elevation, we assume that when it jumped, it evaluated that it can jump that high and survive. So to here, even though it doesn't have anything to climb against, to lean against, this balance itself, basically it based itself against, since it realized it can jump that high and it jumped, so then it's not going to be a problem. There's a sheep, a ewe, the Hava Bay Rav Chaviva that Rav Chaviva had. The Hava Shadr and Kari Basra, it was sort of dragging its back legs. Amar V'yemer Hai Shigrona Nakte. So he has an issue. It's the Rashi says a cramp, some sort of temporary issue. Nakte. He has a temporary problem. Maskef la Ravina. So Ravina asked, maybe the spinal cord snapped, and that's why its back legs don't have any connection, and they're just dragging. But Ravina. And they went and they checked the animal and they found that there was actually a spinal injury, and that's why it was dragging its back legs. It wasn't just a temporary issue. Even so, la halacha, we ruled that the halacha is like Rav Yemer. If you would find an animal dragging its back legs, we would assume that it's a temporary cramp. Why would we assume that? But in this case, there was a spinal cord injury. So shigrona shchiach, because the shigrona, if to have a temporary cramp, that's common. That's a common thing. But for a spinal cord injury, that's not as common, and we don't have to worry about that. Even if we see it dragging its back legs, we don't have to worry that it maybe had a spinal cord injury, and it would be a treifa. Amar Rav Huna. So now we're discussing about limbs getting crushed and whether it's a problem for treifas or not. Amar Rav Huna, males that are goring each other. We're not worried that maybe there's a problem. Maybe they got crushed limbs inside. Even though they're screaming at each other, they're just trying to they're just trying like making battle cries, and it's nothing. It's not because of pain. It's not because they got hurt. Enough alara, but if the one as they're fighting, one of them fell to the ground, then we're definitely worried. We're definitely choshesh. We have to check to make sure nothing happened. Rav Menashe said, "Hani dichri, these rams, the ganvi that people, if ganavim steal it. So if someone comes to steal it,
they throw them over the wall.
And then so the way they steal them is they throw them over the wall. So that should be a problem. That should presumably be a problem that they're throwing them to the ground. They should get crushed. No, we're not worried in such a case. When they throw them, they make sure to throw them on their stomachs, on the face down, in a way that they're not going to get hurt. They're careful how they throw them because they're trying to steal the animals. They don't want them to. They don't have to carry them around. They don't want them to get hurt. So they're careful how they throw them. And why do they do that? So they're healthy enough to run in front of them. They can still run even after they throw them. So we're not worried about that. But let's say Adruna, they want to return them, and they're throwing them over the fence to return them. Over there, we're definitely worried because when they're returning them, they don't care about them. They're just giving them back. They said, okay, let me get rid of them. So they're throwing them over. However, they throw them over, and they don't care if they get hurt or not. And in such a case, you definitely have to worry. Maybe they actually did get hurt, and you have to check it. And this is the Adrinu Machmasir when they return it because they're scared. So they're scared. They're not gonna care about how it gets back. They're just okay. I got it back. I give it back. Don't bother me. But if they have tshuva, they have charata, they regret it, and they want to repent and give it back. Tshuva malisa udavdi, so they can do it properly. They can make sure it comes back whole. It comes back whole. Amr of Yehuda Amrav Hikal Rosha. If someone has a stick and he hit it he's facing the animal and hits it straight down the back. He hit it towards the tail, straight on the spine, down the back. Or he hit it from the back, on the spinal cord, straight towards the head. If he hit the entire spinal cord, if the entire spine, we're not worried. The hit is divided throughout. The power of the hit is divided throughout it all, and it all absorbs it. It absorbs the hit, and no specific area gets hit that we're worried that it's going to cause any issues over there. But if it's vishalom chutra apal, but if the chutra is short and it finishes halfway through the back, in other words, the tip of the stick is hitting the halfway down the back, chashin, and then we're worried because over there, the point that it hit, it could have caused issues in the spine. And if it has a bunch of bumps on the stick, it has certain things sticking out on it, and then it can, and that point can hit the hit. That point is a point that it would hit the spine. Chashin over there, we're also worried because it's not just an equal strength throughout. And then if you hit it across the back, not from the front to the back, then also we're worried because you hit a specific area in the spine, and we're worried that could be an issue of to the animal. It can hurt the animal in a way that will make it a trefa. Okay. I guess we'll stop here. Thank you.